Hello everybody, welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
It's Monday.
Yes, and we intend to do main pods every Monday going forward now that we don't have to worry about two Monday night games. So, yes, we are pre-recording prior to West Ham and Leicester. But
I was going to say, apart from there's a Monday night game today.
It's not important, is it?
Well, we will see.
It certainly means that everybody's FPL week is obviously far from concluded, because I imagine nearly everybody's got something in that game.
The majority of people I have seen in mini leagues in and around me have Antonio as a minimum, and then a few people with Ben Rama or a Soufal, and a few people with a Barnes or a Vardy.
Soufal,
or
Cresswell.
A Marty.
There'll be bits.
Floating around, but not masses. Antonio's the one. But doesn't really matter because we all have Antonios. It doesn't really make a massive difference.
We got the. Antonio's not going to make a big difference to your rank tonight.
Nah.
If you own, if you don't, he might. But if you own, it's not going to make a big difference. Whatever he does, we've got the same two players still to go tonight. Haven't we?
Barnes and Antonio.
Indeed. How was your game week, sir?
Fine. Nothing exciting, but also. Not disastrous in any way, shape or form either. It felt like, just keeping up with the pack. It felt everybody was very tightly bunched this week in terms of scores. A handful of people broke into the 50s and 60s, high 50s, early 60s. Majority of people high 40s, early 50s. But in all my mini leagues, there's a gap of maybe 15 points from the lowest to the highest, which is quite a narrow spread in any given game week. So I think where I missed out this week was defensively. I didn't get the defensive points that some people had, a lot with Schmikas, some with Ruben Diaz or Mings or what have you. So Trent and Sanchez came in with returns for me, and Luke Shaw as well.
Luke Shaw, who you don't have for your attacking returns or the defensive returns, just the bonus points.
It's still 4 points, so I'll take it. Jota did okay, obviously scored again. In the end, Jota versus Schmikas has outscored him by a handful of points over 2 games. 4 or 5 points in total, I'd say.
And a saving of 3.5 million.
Yeah, that's true as well. But now you have to deal with the problem of Robertson back on the bench. So now I don't have to deal with the Jota problem. So that's the trade-off potentially there.
Just that Roberto Firmino might come in instead.
Well, the difference being that Jota in 20 to 30 minutes can do ridiculous damage. And so I'm not tempted to sell him even if he drops to the bench, because I've seen last season that he can do a lot of damage in 20 or 30 minutes. Salah, obviously, the Salah Bruno captaincy.
Well, that was worth a week long of discussion, wasn't it?
Debate ended
Salah
up being
3, Bruno 1, move on.
And Danny Ings doing bits with a wonder strike. But that was it, 49 points. So I think I've stayed flat in rank. It's just meh. This is what it is. But again, keeping up with people, like 15 points gap in mini leagues and stuff like that right now. Doesn't feel like any gap.
What's the rank? Not that it's overly important at the moment.
1.3 million.
Okay. You're fine. You're in and around it, mate.
Yeah, it's neither here nor there. I look at the gap in points between certain teams, and for me, like I think at my worst last season, I would have been 100 points behind you. So like 15 points.
Well, after 2 weeks?
No.
I was going to say.
Probably that would have been around November, December. I feel like. So
you sure it wasn't when you forgot to activate the free hit?
No. That I think it was before then. But the point being that I've been in mini leagues 50, 60 points behind someone. Doesn't make a difference. Like right now, it will all right itself.
I've had a decent start. Annoyingly, I've got no internet at the moment because I'm going a little bit blind.
Well, you scored 61 points.
61 points. No, I do remember. I'm around about, so I want to say about 105k at the moment, actually. So I've had a really good start. I cannot complain at all. But as we just said, rank not too important at this stage. It's so early. One bad week and I'll suddenly be 2 million, right?
Yeah, so 25 points between us as it stands. Is 1.2 million places. Shows how tight it is.
But it's good to have that start.
Completely. I mean, I'd looked at Sky Fantasy, for example, and I don't want to drop it in, but our friend Dan was talking about he's in the top 100. So let me have a look at the point system. But it's 50 points, and I'm 12,000. So 50 points gets me into the top 100 in that game. both formats right now, I think the scoring is very tight.
I think for myself, I'm particularly pleased because I was still knocking about 4 million at like sort of game week 10 last year.
Yeah.
So it's unusual for me to have a good start. So far, the not going Bruno has not hurt me too bad. I've still got Antonio and Barnes to go tonight, so I could well find myself in the top 100k once the game week's completed. Shimikas and Trent doing the business for me defensively. Danny Ings with a goal. I've left Ricardo Pereira on the bench. That could come back and bite me a little bit tonight. Luke Shaw's 4 points. Emi Martinez, dodgy 5 points. Love it. Who else have I got, Suj? I can't even remember.
Mason Greenwood.
Oh, Mason Greenwood with a 10-pointer yesterday. Sorry, I was paying, because I was at Wolves. I was paying no attention to what was going on with that yesterday.
Yeah, Mason Greenwood's done okay as well. Again, he sits there as... him and Schmikas were first 2 or 3 game week kind of players, so take what you can, and both have returned in the first 2 or 3 game weeks, which has been good. So yeah, I just, in a sad way, we talked about how a template is boring, but what you need to do, we're all templated and we're all there within a stone's throw of each other kind of thing. So one big captaincy this week, if I go Antonio and you decide to go with Son or even get Bruno in or what have you, Antonio goes big, suddenly these differences will get clawed back. So
we obviously both rolled as well.
Correct.
So 2 FTs going into this week.
2 FTs, eh?
Any early thoughts?
Yeah. My early thoughts are to downgrade Luka Digne. Fix the problem, right? Luka Digne obviously so far hasn't returned. I also feel like in the current Everton setup, he's not as attacking potentially. They're swinging a lot of crosses, but it feels like it's Iwobi or Damari Gray or Townsend that's doing more of the attacking work than Luka Digne. So I don't feel like he is... he's not on pens, we saw, because DCL took it. He's there. I don't need him. And also, because I have Ben White and Luke Ayling, who I'm happy to rotate in the next 4 or 5 weeks, I can I can ditch Dean as opposed to bitch Dean. Ditch Dean. There we go. Luke Dean, little bitch.
Ben White, I think, has been treated by everybody's bitch. Didn't he drop in price last night?
I have no idea. I also don't care. He's sticking around.
Yeah, I mean...
It's a week and a half.
I've seen a lot of people. I was getting a lot of messages last night. Oh, what should I do with Ben White? And obviously people messaging me about Tottenham defenders. Funny people. But my thoughts were, if you went with Ben White at the start, you knew you had Chelsea and Man City in the first 2. Okay, it's a problem where... Obviously, he didn't play yesterday because of COVID, and Arteta suggested yesterday he probably won't play against Manchester City the weekend anyway. We weren't starting him at Man City anyway.
No.
Didn't you go with Ben White because of Arsenal's run of fixtures from game week 4?
Yeah.
And I realise they look terrible at the moment, but they're obviously missing a number of players better as well. I'm thinking of possibly buying Ben White going into game week 4.
It's a decent shout. So
if he start 4-3 in game week 4, I'm so interested.
Yeah. Ironically, I was looking at FPL statistics last night, looking at the price rises and drops, just to make sure that our friend Livramento was not going up in price. He is the least fancied of the 4.0s, because last night, from what I could see, Duffy and Amati were due for price rises. Not price rises, but they were close on the edge. They were in the 97%.
But you know why that is?
Yeah.
Because Amati's got 6 points from... Well, it's not just that. Amati's got 6 points from 1. Livramento's got 3 points from 2. And Duffy got, 14 points at the weekend or
completely.
Something. But that's why.
But if you think about
people are still going to be buying Shimikas this week. I bet Shimikas has had more buyers than Livramento.
Yeah, you're right. Completely.
And he ain't going to be in the team this week.
The irony is Shimikas might drop out. Duffy is at risk of dropping out. And even if he wasn't, I've got Sanchez, so I'm not doubling up on Brighton defence. And Amati's going to drop out. So Livramento for Luka Digne is where I'm looking at. Then I already had 500,000 in the bank. So that gives me 2 million in the bank. And I'll roll the second free transfer. Then I have to make a decision on what to do with my third striker. So Ivan Toney is sitting there. And I'd have enough money, give or take. I'd have to make one other move to get to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who looks lively as. But really, I want to get to Lukaku. So if I then decide that I can downgrade Harvey Barnes or Jota, or even Heung-min Son, then I will have enough money to get to Lukaku. So the first move is Digne to a 4.0. Bank the money, roll it again next week, see what happens after that.
Livramento is the best 4.0 in this game at the moment.
Correct.
Or sort of 4.1 or whatever, as far as I'm concerned.
Has he gone up, has he?
I don't know.
No, I don't think
genuinely, I haven't looked. And that's partly because I'm in no rush to do anything. One of the big things, and we might end up doing this on the People's Poll tomorrow, because it's going to be one of the options we'll put out for vote. That vote will be live now. Is obviously this potential problem with players returning from internationals for game week 4. So, I mean, we should get some information this week. Like a lot of people perhaps didn't start with Rafinha, looking at him this week. He's going to be in the Brazil squad. Is he going to be available for game week 4? We don't really know. Mo Salah, plenty of other players. The Premier League's trying to get exemptions for these guys to be able to play in game week 4. But there's precedent been set in other sports where that may not happen. So it's something we really need to keep an eye on this week. That's why I really wouldn't recommend early transfers. This is League Cup games this week. Obviously, the Premier League teams will heavily rotate, but there may be some information from that. Heung-min Son reportedly perhaps got an injury, which is why he was substituted yesterday in the Wolves game. I was there. It didn't look like he was hobbling off to me, but there are reports suggesting that there may actually be an issue there, and I might be looking to captain him this week, so I'm in no rush to make a transfer. And obviously there's one game still to go tonight as well, and Mikel Antonio is never any guarantee that he's going to make it through a night. So what I'm doing next week, I don't know. If all my players are fit, I'm going Salah to Bruno Fernandes.
Simples.
That's it.
Yeah. Taking the FPL side of things aside, Liverpool-Chelsea next Saturday looks tasty.
Oh, was it Saturday? I thought it was Sunday. It's Saturday night.
5:30 Saturday.
Nice. Yeah,
looks
brilliant
tasty.
game. What's the 4:30 on Sunday?
The
Wolves United, isn't it?
Wolves United.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to West Ham Palace, so I'm just thinking on Saturday to stick around there, like find a bar and just sit back and relax. That Liverpool-Chelsea game already, it feels like it's going to be a heavyweight game of football. Both teams are playing well, decent form. Neither have conceded a goal yet this season. I mean, Lukaku versus Van Dijk. I just want to see that shit. It's like WWE style clash of the
on
titans.
Lukaku,
beastly.
A little bit like what I said last week with the Brentford goal from the throw-in. Like, if there was one team you could imagine that goal being scored against, unfortunately, it's Arsenal. And if there was one team you could imagine Lukaku going straight in and bullying someone, again, you're looking at going, it's Arsenal, right? I mean, he threw the fella around, didn't he, right?
Yeah.
So it's a different game for Lukaku this week against not just Van Dijk, but presumably Joel Matip as well, right? They like the physical battle. It's a different game. And it's not to say Lukaku can't return at Anfield. Of course he can. Like, he's a beast. He's one of the best centre forwards in the world. He can return in any game. But I'm seeing people like thumping around hits already this week to try and force him in before Liverpool away. And then it's Villa, Tottenham and Manchester City before the really good fixture swing. And I think the sensible thing at the moment is to wait. You force him in, are you actually going to put the armband on him? You're not captaining him at Liverpool this week, are you?
No.
I don't care who he is.
You aren't, but I mean, his ownership is crazy. 1 million plus players already have him. So a lot have gone early on him. And the thing is, in certain games, I can see Chelsea potentially going big.
But then there were, we've got Antonio, Ings, Calvert-Lewin, just to name 3, at cheaper at the moment, who look like really good options. Now, particularly say for Danny Ings, that's going to be a naughty fixture swing in game week 4. But he's another one. I'd be more comfortable, I think, having Danny Ings sitting there for a while, because I think, he can score in any game as well, and I'm definitely not going to put the armband on him. For Lukaku's value, you've got to make serious sacrifices to get him in now, and I don't see that. Imagine your case where you're looking to take Luka out before Brighton away to force Lukaku in away to Liverpool.
No, Lukaku would be at least in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah,
like I wouldn't have the money, so I'm not going to take a hit.
You're thinking ahead.
Yeah,
I think the entry point's either 4 or 7. Like, if you want to really captain Lukaku at home to Aston Villa, like I can live with that. But I can also say that Bruno Fernandes at home to Newcastle will be by far the most captain player in game week 4. I'm pretty sure of that. So I think for me, it's a work towards game week 7. And I think a lot of people have that kind of set in their mind as perhaps the wildcard time. not have to worry about the thinking ahead of, I need to drop out the Deans or the Ricardo Pereiras or the Barnes, Jotas, Greenwoods, these players to try and find the money. Actually going, do you know what? 7 is such a good swing. Let's wildcard then. That might be what I end up doing.
My initial thoughts right now are that Dominic Calvert-Lewin will cover me off Lukaku. For the price saving...
That's dangerous.
I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin will be okay for the short term. So I have to break my team, right, to get to Lukaku quite a bit. And so can I avoid doing that and keep Dominic Calvert-Lewin and be okay with my midfield that I have in Barnes, Salah, Jota, Son? And Barnes, I think, might go after today to Rafinha.
You mean after this week?
After next week.
Yeah,
after this
you don't want to sell Barnes before Norwich away if he's fit, do you?
After the next week. I know he hasn't had this week's game, but after 4 or something, to Rafinha frees me up a little bit of money.
This week, there are so many good potential captaincy options. We looked at the first 11 game weeks pre-season and we said if there was one week really to punt the captaincy, it would be game week 3. There were people like Antonio, Danny Ings, who perhaps wouldn't be in other weeks, but really come into the reckoning this week. Heung-min Son if fit, another one. There are loads of options this week for the captaincy, and I think we might get quite a nice spread actually from, let me say, the engaged players. For tomorrow's people's poll, Suj, which the vote is available now if you want to vote on it. Game week 3 captaincy is one of the options. We can look at that in more detail for you if you would like. We'll also look at problem FPL assets and suitable solutions for them, and the game week 4 isolation issue where currently it looks like there are a number of Premier League players could miss game week 4. Those are the 3 options for tomorrow's podcast if you want to vote on them. So we may not go into too much detail on those 3 subjects now, Suj.
Okie dokie. I will be heavily swayed on my captaincy decision this week by what I see tonight.
I think right now for me is probably Son, but I need to know that he's all right. And one of the things I'm a little bit conscious about with Sonny for Sunday, I've spoken about this in the past, particularly when I've captained Kane, not recently, but in the past. And I've been frustrated with it in hindsight because I've turned around and said to you afterwards, I didn't know how Tottenham were going to play. I shouldn't have been sticking the armband on him. And at the moment, because of Kane himself, I don't quite know where Heung-min Son's going to play, right? Or if he's even fit. There are some question marks about his fitness, as I said. So it might well be that puts me off Sonny. And it could be that I go for Antonio or Ings, actually, at the weekend. Or Bruno at Wolves. Although I was quite impressed with what I saw with Wolves yesterday.
Yeah. They certainly had a lot of chances. So there's no doubt about that. You can maybe attest a little bit more to the quality of those chances. But yeah, should we run down some of these games from the weekend and any kind of thoughts that have come up on players and FPL kind of thoughts?
Let's do that. I'm blind. I've got no internet or nothing. So
okay, well, it's all here.
You might have to help me out with some price rises and shit because I haven't seen any of it.
Well, Liverpool, Schmick has had a price rise. Salah's had a price rise. Jota's had a price rise. Sadio Mane returned. Trent with an assist. Schmickas with an assist. Robertson was on the bench. Schmickas, it'd be hard to drop him based on his performances. He's been playing well. But there is that big but. There is a big
fairly obvious big but, isn't it?
Yeah. It feels really harsh for the poor guy to come in after doing nothing, get 2 games, play really well.
That's life. This young lad didn't think he was going to sign for Liverpool and oust Andy Robertson, who, when he's on peak form, is one of the best left fullbacks on the planet. Did not really think he was going to oust him. Now, he has done quite well in the 2 games, particularly, obviously, from a fantasy perspective. But it would be stunning, I think, if we saw that team on Saturday night and Andy Robertson wasn't in it.
Yeah.
Being real.
Yeah, and especially as it is Chelsea. So.
Particularly if you think about Lukaku drifting to the right-hand side as well. Mm-hmm. So we've spoken about Van Dijk and Matip and that being a more physical battle. But there's every chance, we've seen this a lot, particularly for Belgium. Lukaku likes to drift right-hand side. Could easily be pulling on to Tsimikas for aerial balls if Chelsea want to go direct. That's not quite such a problem if Robertson plays. Robertson doesn't mind the physical either. So it would be stunning if Tsimikas played, in my opinion, on Saturday. So I think people have got what they want. Is he 4.2 yet, Suj?
Tsimikas is 4.1.
It probably will go to 4.2 because people are still buying him. So for myself, because I've got Pereira, Shaw and Trent, it's not such a pressing issue for me. I think for those who've gone in and have got 2 other 4.0s or sitting there with Ben White, there's a little bit of a problem, obviously, coming up. And I totally get in that situation why I particularly say Ben White owners are looking to move him out. I get that completely. It's not a major issue for me. He can just sit on the bench. I don't see if he stays there for a while for me, I don't see it being a major issue, because I think I can only see me wanting Jota if Salah or Mane or Firmino were ruled out for a consistent period. And I can't see me, as much as I love Andy Robertson as an FPL asset, when I know at some point I'm going to want to force Lukaku in, I can't really see me trying to force in Andy Robertson at the moment.
No.
So it probably means going without. So Tsimikas can just sit there, third sub for me for a little bit. And I think because of the points he's got already, the less engaged players will probably just keep buying him, because they're going to look at it and go, well, what's he on? 17 points from 2. And what did we say last year? From those who was 4.0, Manquillo had the most last year with 26 or something.
Season. Yeah.
So it's not a case where the less engaged players are probably still going to continue to buy him. I think those on Wildcard would, again, less engaged players will probably still make that mistake. But you should definitely be looking elsewhere. Don't buy Tsimikas now. No. If you've got Jota, any concern about him not starting Saturday?
He might not start. Who cares? He'll come on and do some damage.
But will he come on and do some damage against Chelsea?
The thing is that I don't know if going up man-to-man physically against Chelsea's back three is the right strategy for Liverpool. Where they will do well is pace and getting in behind, because I can see Salah being able to do Rudiger with pace and getting in behind with pace. So I think them having pacier attackers playing will be more beneficial than having Firmino's hold-up play, because I think that they'll be able to marshal Firmino in his hold-up play a lot easier. So I think pace is how they'll do well. So I don't have any concerns in it, and I'll take it on the chin if Jota's benched, to be honest with you, because I'll take 15, 20 minutes of him per game. But in the short term, he scored 2 in 2. He's playing well. He could have had more. No concerns.
If it sounded on the audio like someone just farted, that was me turning my phone off. One thing I'm going to pick out from the game tactically, I thought Harvey Elliott was great. And what Harvey Elliott did a lot, and this is interesting, I think, going forward possibly, because I wouldn't expect him to start against Chelsea. But what obviously he did a lot was drift to the right-hand side. And it allowed Trent to come into some more central areas. And it allowed, one of the things we spoke about when they were struggling a bit last year was the distances between Trent and Salah not being quite right.
Too big.
And he filled a gap where they really did outnumber Burnley that side. And obviously with Van Dijk back now, he loves that diagonal left to right into Salah and stuff. So really dominated that area. I think Burnley have a certain issue, and this goes back to something I said when Burnley lost at Tottenham last season, where they're trying to evolve their style a little bit and become more of a pressing team. They started the game quite well. They easily could have gone in front. When they go and press, the distances between the back four and the midfield four are too big. That second goal, how Trent ends up in that pocket with no one near him, and then, it's a beautiful little pass he plays inside, and then Mane being free. How easily Burnley ended up with a 4v4 should not happen. So teams who are not frightened to go direct, I think, are going to give Burnley some issues. And I think Leeds are a team that will give them some issues at the weekend, because if you think of Calvin Phillips and stuff, same thing, ping, diagonals. So I think if Leeds go a little bit, when we say direct, we're not saying long balls. I think that Leeds will give Burnley some real issues at the weekend. I think that game's Sunday lunchtime-ish, isn't it? Or Sunday afternoon.
Sunday 2:00.
So I think those who play short, more progressive passing, not going to be an issue for Burnley, sitting a bit deeper, and they'll be fine. But those who play fast and direct, and Leeds can mix it up, I think will give them some problems.
They've got a horrible run now, Burnley. Leeds,
well, yeah.
Everton, Arsenal, Leicester. They could be 6 games in, nothing on the board.
But if you take what's after Leeds, Everton.
Yeah, then Arsenal.
So Everton are another team who probably don't mind going direct and obviously getting into the front man quick, but it's more central. We're talking about diagonals here.
Yeah.
So Leeds going Phillips into Harrison, into Rafinha, which is not going to be aerial. Everton will probably knock it more into Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison. Might be less of an issue, actually. So I think Leeds could cause them some problems on the weekend. You should be aware of that.
Yeah.
Burnley assets are just a no-go till they come out the other side of this run.
Correct. Aston Villa, Newcastle. I mean, Aston Villa ended up winning, probably deserved to win, but Newcastle, obviously with the penalty incident and what have you, could have had something from it, but they're sitting on no points, -4 goal difference, Newcastle. Not great.
Did you think it was a red card? Martinez.
Orange?
Yeah, I'll probably go. I think he was very lucky.
Yeah.
Very
Orange.
lucky.
I mean, we could actually probably do a second pod. We could have put it as an option in people's poll. VAR changes, better or worse? Because there's a number of incidents over the whole weekend where people are like, come on, now you're letting too much go.
What we realised was that in game week 1, we were just really lucky that there was no close offside calls or anything, wasn't it?
Yeah, true.
I mean, look at that. I mean, obviously Salah blanked this weekend, and the same applied to Bruno yesterday as well. But he's just offside for the goal disallowed. He had another one that Mane really should have put on a plate for him. He's had another one that Dwight McNeil clears off the line. And I don't even know why Dwight McNeil's back there. Salah easily could have hauled. Bruno yesterday, was it Lindelof's effort that hit the bar? He was in and around a couple of others where he could have returned as well. Anyway, sorry, that's off track.
I mean, Danny Ings...
Newcastle started well, by the way. Sort of 20, 25 minutes in, Villa could have easily been behind. Didn't start well at all. Then they settled. Obviously, the goal is magnificent from Danny Ings.
Yeah.
I guess that's goal of the season so far. He's so good in front of goal. There is a point there that's interesting, and it is on long throws. So, obviously, again, we spoke about the Brentford one last week. Another long throw here. There are more and more coaches being employed by football clubs who work specifically on set pieces. And Aston Villa are one of the clubs that's picked up a new one. And someone like Tyrone Mings, who obviously ends up with the assist for this, it's another avenue into points for him. Now, for him in that situation, it's only ever going to be an assist. He's not going to get the header from that. The throw-in's not long enough. He's not going to get that unless it was a big backwards looping header that dropped in at the far post. It can only be the assist. But there are a few clubs maybe to keep an eye on where actually their attacking threat might be a little bit more. One of the things I guess the guys don't look at from metrics, it probably is somewhere, so apologies if it is, number of long throws. Who's tracking that? So we know who takes the corners. We've got all that data. Who's tracking how many long throws someone takes? That's something I think you might need adding to metric, because in the case of Villa as well, depending on who plays right back, left back, Matty Cash has got a fairly long throw. They're probably only going to do it from the right hand side, whereas Brentford are probably going to do it a little bit more. But it's happening more and more actually.
Yeah,
you're seeing long throws. Ings, I genuinely think is a possible captaincy option at home to Brentford this week. I know they haven't conceded yet, but it's still a good fixture and you can trust him, right? If he gets chances, scores goals. I feel like he might have only had 2 shots so far, Danny Ings.
I was driving back from Cornwall on Saturday when the commentary was on, and I think it was Pat Murphy on 5 Live. He was decent whenever he's on. But it was. He talks about long throws come in. Mings has flicked it on, and Buendia overhead kicked. All I thought about was, that's decent for James in Sky. And then they went back to him 2 minutes later, and they were like, yes, it was a fantastic overhead kick. The only thing is, it was Danny Ings, not Buendia. It's
fair to say my last minute call of Buendia over Rafinha in Sky has not worked out very well for me. Yet. I don't think Buendia is going to catch him this weekend.
No.
And Lee Jackson did say to me, he said, Buendia quiet again, which is a little bit of concern. I think if you are an Emi Buendia owner, and there must be some of you out there, I think this is, you keep for this week, don't you? Brentford at home.
Oh, yeah.
Still a good fixture. See how you go. But I think irrespective of return this weekend, you're probably binning.
Ings has had a price rise now. He's at 40% ownership. Are you still thinking after next week to come off?
I think in Ings' case, a little bit like him and Antonio, I'm not so bothered about the fixtures.
Yeah.
Because I'd look at that at the moment, and in the case of both of those two individual players, I think, well, if the team's going to return, there's a good chance he's going to return.
Yep.
If Danny Ings gets a chance against anybody, there's a fair opportunity he'll score. And the beauty with Danny as well is, especially, because his conversion ratio is pretty good and stuff. And we've seen this for years. He's always in the bonus as well.
2 weeks, twice on the bonus already so far.
Danny Ings' goal is nearly always worth more than 4 points in FPL. So if I look at that and went, could Villa lose 2-1 at Chelsea and Danny Ings score? And I go, yeah, that's a possibility. It's not a priority. I think the idea would be to get rid. But if I'm not happy with where I'm going, I think I'll just leave it for a bit.
What would be ideal is if he scored again and picked up another price rise to 8.2.
Makes it easier to sell,
to
ironically.
Get to DCL for sure. It definitely does. Palace Brentford 0-0. I just caught some highlights on this, and nothing I heard about this game made me want to dig into it in any more detail than that. Other than obviously for Brentford, it's a great away point. You cannot argue with that. But yeah, Palace still finding their feet a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it's easy to look at Palace and go 0 goals. They might even have had the fewest XG of any team so far, I want to say. But I can't check any stats at the moment. They're obviously missing some of the new players. Obviously, had a couple back in at the weekend. Anderson back in, Conor Gallagher in. Gallagher should have scored. But it was the only real chance that Palace had in the game was well created by
hit the other side
Wilfred
of the
Zaha.
bar, or whatever, didn't he?
It was kind of post and bar inside, wasn't it? He should have scored. Raya made one brilliant save from James McArthur. And it's interesting, one of the promoted goalkeepers always does well. And everybody who's picked one's gone with Backman, haven't they? And you look at Raya and go 2 clean sheets. That will start to get some interest at 4.5, actually.
Pinnock is still up there as one of the most bought players at the moment, and I think people looked at it from last week as well. It makes me think there's a lot more bots.
I just think it's herd. It's less engaged, and it's like, I want to make a change. I've got a problem. People look at a problem, and quite simply, they look at who's got the most points. My wife does this. She nearly finished above me one year doing literally that. I've got a problem. Who should I get in? He's got the highest points, and nearly beat me one year doing that. If I was buying a Brentford defender, if it wasn't the goalkeeper, Rico Henry, not Ethan Pinnock. Henry at left wing back in the system they're playing at the moment is very interesting. He would be the one for me if you wanted to go to. I guess Tony is possibly becoming an issue. What's their next couple of fixtures, Brentford?
Well, obviously they've got Villa away this weekend, and then they play Brighton at home. Yeah. Not great. Wolves away. We've seen that Wolves are pretty decent. Then they go into a dog of a run. Liverpool, West Ham, Chelsea, Leicester.
So you're an owner, aren't you?
Yep.
So what are you thinking?
I'm going to keep him for 1 week at least this week. And if he still doesn't return, I'll have 2 free transfers and money to upgrade him next week. So I could easily go to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think.
I think there's still a high probability that when Brentford score goals, Tony's going to be involved in a large majority of them. We know he hasn't been yet, but I think that's possibly to come. There was always the danger. Has his price gone yet, Suj? No. There was always a danger that because of his ownership, and if he flopped and other forwards were doing well, which is exactly what's happening, that people would begin to look away. The difficulty, of course, with Tony and the price point is all the forwards you want are more expensive. That's the problem. There's nothing obvious for you to drop down. You're almost looking at it in your case and going, can you work it in to go down to a 4.5 or a 5 and then use some of the funds to go up to from Ings towards Lukaku, moving it somewhere else, as you said you might do by sacrificing a Dean or something.
So far, net transfers in is still a positive for Ivan Toney. So he's still owned by over 2 million managers, and he's got more managers this week than he did last week.
But
so it's going to take
a lot of people joining the game
potentially. But it could be it's going to require quite a swing for people to come off him. Problem is, where do they go right now? So
that's it. You need to go up, really.
There's other problems to fix for people, I think. Tony, I can't see him dropping in price for a week or 2, but definitely worth keeping an eye on.
I wouldn't be convinced about that, Suj, I have to say. I think he could well do, actually.
Let's see. Leeds, Everton.
Yeah, I watched this game. Really good game.
We both predicted a 3-2. We weren't far off, mate.
We were very close. If Bamford could have got off his bum with literally the last kick of the game.
Yeah, but having said that, it could have gone the other way as well. If Dominic Calvert-Lewin could get off his arse.
Everton should have won.
Yeah, DCL. I mean, to be honest, I was just thinking about it from Everton's fans' kind of point of view. They really did have a good season until it faded away back end of last year. And they've kind of started reasonably well. Well, they started really well this year so far and are creating chances and have scored goals. So, You've got to be a bit hopeful as an Everton fan of what's to come.
So Everton, as I tweeted at the weekend, very unapologetic in what they're doing. Can you get it into wide areas? Can you feed it into Calvert-Lewin? Demarai Gray might be a player that falls into a similar trap to what people fell in last year. Now, I think when people think about traps, you fall into the, oh, is he a trap? He's got great fixtures, or is his form yada, yada, yada. A lot of the trap that we fell into last year was having pre-judgment analysis of certain players. And the two that spring to mind are Bamford at Leeds was like, he's not good enough for the Championship. Is he going to do it in the Premier League? And the other one was Jesse Lingard at West Ham, where you go, is this sustainable? And every week he keeps returning, is this sustainable? And I think Demarai Gray might be one of them where people have got a preset opinion in their mind and think, no, I don't fancy that. It's just not of interest. They still have a good run of fixtures for another 4 or 5, I think, Everton. If he keeps playing the way he's been playing in the first 2, he is extremely interesting at 5.5, honestly.
It's very cheap.
Honestly. Could have had more. He's definitely got a relationship built with Calvert-Lewin, and that's really important. Now, at 5.5, you're not expecting the world, but he might return some goods. I think if I had to drop to that level right now, I'd possibly go for him, actually, because the fixtures are still okay. And as I said, they're unapologetic in the way that they're playing.
Yep.
Get it into wide areas, attack. What I like about Gray is there seems some sort of release in him where it's like, go and attack the opposition. There's almost a little bit of fearlessness about it. Now, there's still a bit of quality missing, even in his goal. It comes from a miscontrol, but then he finished it very well. By the way, celebration, how's your knees, mate? But I think he's interesting at 5.5. Calvert-Lewin's obviously very interesting as well.
Yeah. Knee slides, just on knee slides. I don't think I've ever attempted to do a knee slide on grass.
Would you like to?
And I don't think I would be able to. I'm sure I would fall.
I'm sure I would do what Demarai Gray did.
Yeah. I look at it when I see players slide, and I'm like, it's got to do a proper knee slide. Like Sonny's quite good at the old knee slides. It takes a little bit of skill. Like all I can, whenever I see a player knee slide, I always just imagine I'm going to go into the ground, friction stop, and then flip and fall over and do a Gray. I don't think I could do a knee slide. I'm going to try though one day.
Yeah, we are definitely going to film it.
We have to. But you're going to do one as well.
We keep getting reminded we have to do this penalty shootout soon as well.
That too. Okay, so if we score a penalty at the penalty shootout, we can celebrate with knee slides.
Do the knee slide.
Yeah, knee slides, I think they're hard. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but whenever I see them, I always worry that
I think
the player...
98% of Premier League footballers can confirm it's probably not that hard.
Knee slide.
It helps that the pitches are slick and they're watered and stuff,
wet,
doesn't it?
They? Wet and muddy.
I don't know what Demarai Gray's excuse was. It was poor. Luka Dean is obviously an issue for people.
Yeah.
One of the things I was saying on my deadline stream was play him. Because I don't think that you should have looked at Leeds away as a game to kind of fear. And actually, I mean, the penalty, which is definitely a penalty, I don't know why it took them so long to give the decision, it's Dean's cross for Calvert-Lewin. If Cooper actually doesn't pull him, Calvert-Lewin probably scores. And Luka Dean's got your assist.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one because they've still got good fixtures. And one of the things I obviously warned about him was, because their fixtures don't ever get worse, he's the sort of player you might find it difficult to get rid of.
Yeah.
He could easily get good returns at Brighton at the weekend for you, couldn't he, Suj?
Yes, but
you sound like you've had enough of it.
Well, it's interesting. There's two things in my mind. One was the podcast that we did with Callan, and we talked in that one about Luka Dean, because both Callan and I started with Luka Dean as he might be too difficult to come off for the first 6 or 7 weeks. Well, ironically, he's the weakest link for me right now, and I don't have any other problems to come off, so I can come off him early. I'm going to come off him knowing full well that he could come back and return in the next few and hurt me, but knowing that it's part of a bigger strategy. I'm not going sideways from Luka Dean to a Pereira or even Kyle Walker or anyone else. I'm dropping down to a 4.0 because it frees me up money to do something else elsewhere. And I think Ayling, majority of the time with a bit of Ben White, can cover it off okay. So yeah, I'm not like raging at Luka Dean, and I do still have a little bit of confidence that he'll return in the coming weeks, but not as much as previously. I just see the amount of times when I've been listening to commentary or catching on the highlights that it's Iwobi or Gray or what have you putting the crosses in. it doesn't feel like Luka Digne is as instrumental from an attacking point of view as he has been previously, or as important as he was previously. So I feel comfortable moving away. But yeah, of course he can still return.
The only thing I'd say with it is I'd look at the goals again, the 3 goals they've conceded. The first one, Michael Keane's had a complete brain fart in the Southampton game.
Correct, yeah.
The second one, he's also had 2 brain farts for Matthias Klick's goal at the weekend. He tries to win the first ball, doesn't win it, and then overstretches. And actually, if he accepts that he doesn't win it, he'd end up tracking Klick's run. But because he goes to ground, Mina has to come across, and then Bamford's got the easy pass. So I think they were better for having Mina in the team at the weekend, and I think they'll be better again once Godfrey comes back in the team. And the third goal was obviously it's a bit of a worldie from Rafinha from the edge of the box, right? He strikes it beautifully. So their returns might change by just solving a couple of basic errors or removing Michael Keane from the team, which might be a bit harsh, but he's been at fault, in my opinion, for 2 of the 3 goals so far. So I'd be cautious of it.
Yeah, it's not a burning problem to fix at the moment, but we shall see.
In Leeds' case, it's interesting. I was keeping an eye on Twitter while I was watching the game, and there was a lot of, are they on second season syndrome stuff? And I really don't think that's the case.
No.
I think another centre-back, I think they'll be better for removing Cooper out of the team. They will be so much better when they get Llorente back fit and in the team. And although I think Everton should have won, particularly Calvert-Lewin, it was a great pass from Iwobi, actually, was the one real big chance. It should have clinched the game. I've got no major concerns about them, Leeds. And as I've already said, I know they could do some damage to Burnley at the weekend, actually. I cannot see them being involved in any second season syndrome issues unless they get major injuries to the squad will be a problem because they do not have the depth beyond the strongest team at the moment. But if they keep their best players fit, they'll be fine. Yeah,
Ayling's fine for me. He had that one effort, didn't he, from outside the box again. I feel like he's shooting a bit more. Maybe it's just psychological. But Ayling's fine for me, and actually I'm thinking of going back for Rafinha, who didn't start the season with and picked Barnes over. But I do think now that saving that $500,000 Barnes to Rafinha after the Norwich game is one that I have an eye on.
I've got Harrison and Ayling. I intend to play Harrison again this weekend. Probably not Ayling, because I would go with Pereira at Norwich over him and play Shaw and Trent. I can't see me leaving any of them 3 out. But I'm well prepared to know that sort of from game week 5 there's a good swing for Leeds.
There's a massively good one, isn't there? Newcastle, West Ham, Watford, Southampton, Wolves, Norwich. Barnes would have just come off Norwich, and Leeds would have just come off Liverpool. Perfect time to make that switch.
Harrison's a good case where you look at the first 2 and think, yeah, and I'd realise not many of you will have him. We think, he hasn't returned. He hasn't really looked like returning, but it was part with really thinking ahead. And if Benrahma returns tonight, you can think, Harrison to Benrahma, that's so obvious. But then West Ham have got a good next 2, and then I'd probably want to go back again.
Yeah.
And ideally, I probably want to add Rafinha to this for game week 5 as well. So it's always been a think ahead for Leeds, and I think they'll have a good week this week.
Let's talk about Manchester City 5, Norwich 0.
Pep's back.
3-0 is what I predicted. 4-0 is what you predicted. 5-0 is what actually happened. And a massive shout out to our minus 56 teams. So some of the regular listeners who are not on Patreon won't know about the side competition we're running with the patrons, the minus 56 league, which...
Suj wants to tell you that he captained Raheem Sterling.
And Mahrez as well was in that team. I'll tell you what.
Jammy, motherfucker.
We basically it's a free hit every single week. 15 transfers, which means you take a minus 56, but you've got to keep going. I thought I'd go bold and captain Raheem Sterling and Riyad Mahrez both didn't start, and I thought I'm gonna be in trouble here in the old minus 56 league. But they're both. This is the thing with some of these assets, and we can bring Jota back into the conversation. Fine, bench him. And for you,
but they're also not playing Norwich every week.
No, that's also true. But you might have a problem with Mason Greenwood, for example, with Sancho now coming in and stuff. Greenwood's still
thankfully Anthony Martial was useless again. Yeah. Yes, this is probably not too much of a problem yet.
So they can just do just as much damage in 15 or 20 minutes, and we saw that again with Manchester City. I really thought at the start of the second half they probably would take their foot off the gas a little bit and just coast through. and they'll still score 2 or 3 when they're coasting through. I think you're a bit unfair to Jack Grealish when you call Danny Ings' goal of the season so far. I think it's very unfair on Jack Grealish's first goal. It's not a debut goal, but first goal.
It was inevitable that the 100 million man's first goal was either going to be a goal of the season contender or that. I mean, he literally knew nothing about it. He took a little bobble. He's thinking last second, oh, I'll control this. It's the inside of his knee and bubbles in. But that's good. Like, get it off the mark, etc. Regular listeners know what I think about Grealish. Astonishing player. I think from an FPL perspective, not convinced because of the central role. And there is another interesting thing that really came out in the game at the weekend was Jesus' positioning. And there is a quote knocking about saying that Jesus prefers to play wide. Now,
yeah, I don't know. Was it the quote that he did in his post-match interview?
I think it was a quote that Guardiola said.
Right. So yeah, I listened to an interview with him after the game, and the guy said to him, "Look, obviously new position for you out on the right wing, a slightly different position to what you're used to." And he said, "No, it's a new position for you to see me in. But in the Brazil national team for 2 years, I've been playing as a right winger, so it's not new for me at all. It is what I am." And he quite seemed to like it, I thought. So
what it means at the moment is, should Manchester City not buy Harry Kane, and there's every chance that will still happen. But if they didn't, and we get into game week 4 and it's the same squad, I think we are looking at probably Ferran Torres up front, or we're looking at Kevin De Bruyne playing false 9 for the majority of games. Because I think if we're beginning to judge Jesus as a wide player, it's going to be funny when he's midfielder in FPL next year and finally goes off. We've got Jesus, Mahrez, Sterling, Foden to come back. Those wide areas become it's too much of a headache, mate. Yeah. It's too much of a headache.
Yeah. I think the go-to for me would actually be Ruben Diaz, or I actually have enough money to go from Luca Dean to Ruben Diaz. So rather than downgrade to Livramento, just get it done and sit with him at 6 million, because I think he's still good value at 6 million. Or sideways to Kyle Walker, who's only 5.5, and just leave it in there, because I know Diaz is going to play week in, week out. I can't see myself wanting no City coverage because they're the best team in the league.
But then we saw this last year. Who was their highest scoring FPL player?
Johnny Stones.
No, Ederson.
Oh, it was Ederson.
Guardiola said as well, by the way, that Laporte will play again against Arsenal, is what he said. Right. So I presume John Stones won't play this weekend either.
Okay.
Which is a pain in the arse for my draft team with the patrons, but there you go. We'll get that fixed. I think it makes Torres the one that's interesting to watch. Now, I think for if you're on the City players, it's fine, and you're not selling this week, even like Mahrez and stuff. I think, again, kind of what you said, look, it's Arsenal this weekend. If Mahrez gets 25 minutes, he could do the damage and stuff. I think there's possibly a decision to be made afterwards. I think, as I said, I think Torres is the one to really keep an eye on, actually. And it might even be that Jesus is interesting as a... Could he nail down that spot in a wide area?
Or go big, KDB, if you really fancy it.
Once he's back, yeah, obviously. But then you're trying to fit in Lukaku and Salah and Bruno and Sonny and Harry Kane, and where are you finding the De Bruyne money?
It's difficult.
Would be a big problem. On Norwich, he conceded the same goal 4 times, exactly as Daniel Farke said. Major issues in the left back area. So Janulis played. They took him off at half-time and put 4.0 defender Mumba on. That's not the 4.0 you're buying this week. And they had the same problems anyway with people coming in off the flank. What Norwich got next?
Leicester at home, trouble. Arsenal away, difficult as well. I mean, as much as we judge Arsenal on the first 2, eventually they will get to some sort of rhythm. Mid-table rhythm, but rhythm nonetheless. Watford at home is a huge game. Then Everton away, it's going to be stingy. Burnley away, definitely going to be stingy. Brighton at home, they've just started with 2 wins. Chelsea away, they're going to get smashed. Leeds at home, I think they wouldn't have come across that intensity for a little while. And we're into November.
Stop. You ain't even mentioned Tottenham, have you? Stop.
You're not playing them till December, mate. Don't worry.
If you are sitting there, and obviously watch the game tonight, honestly... If you are sitting there with no idea what to do for your transfer this week, but you have a set theory in your mind that you want a wild card during the international break, I think a Jose Perez could be an unbelievable 1-week punt for the weekend. Because he is the sort of player that if he plays in that area, will make those runs from outside to inside. And if that's something that's going to get exploited, then he's the sort of player that can take advantage. He is obviously not a long-term FPL prospect, but he might be someone who has good returns this weekend. I'd like to see Harvey Barnes go and play on the right, personally. Just get him away from Max Aarons, who's obviously pretty decent on the other side.
Doing okay, yeah.
But they conceded the same goal over and over. And unfortunately, you look at them already. I know we said last week Liverpool's difficult to judge, and the same kind of applies now with Man City. But you look at them and think, oh, you look like you're going to be whipping boys again, unfortunately.
Brighton 2, Watford 0. It's not a tale of two halves. It's a tale of two games for Watford. Game 1 and Game 2, isn't it, really?
Correct. If Watford play like they played in Game Week 1, they'll stay up. If they continue to play like they played at Brighton, they will not stay up this year.
So what do you do in a Watford analysis point of view? Do we wait and see what happens in Game 3 and see if we get the Game Week 1 Watford or the Game Week 2 Watford?
Well, I think in most cases for Watford ownership, you're probably on Backman or Salah.
Yeah.
There might be some that have gone early on Dennis, which is fine. He's had the little price rise. He played again up front, so we do look like at the moment we've got a playing 5.1 million forward, which is interesting. I don't think it's priority for anyone. They have a good swing of fixtures. Game week 4 to 6 for Watford's interesting. So you get another look this weekend. What I suspect, and this is interesting perhaps for those who think that maybe captain Son this weekend, I think they'll change. When I did the team news stream for our advanced tier patrons on Friday, I said I think 4 changes for Watford this week. They made only 1. I think those changes will now come this weekend. I think one of them actually might be Dennis comes out the team, ironically. I think Josh King could come in. I think getting Sierralta back in at centre-back must be a priority for them. Getting Feminier in at right-back. These things might make them a little bit more competitive. If they play like they played at Brighton, though, Sonny could have a field day. It is worth saying that Watford won't be the first or the last team that go to Brighton and just get outplayed.
No.
And we've seen them do it to good sides before.
Correct. Top 6 sides, the lot.
And there were a few outstanding performers for Brighton. Man of the match by distance was Basuma, who was so good that I think would make Brighton fans nervous that he will still be there next week. He was that good.
Sitting third on my bench with his 8 points.
That's
bastard.
that's okay. That's okay.
I'll take it. He might go up in value.
Exactly. And we actually spoke about it. That's good for you. If you're a Basuma owner, don't be regretting that he's on the bench and got you to return, because we spoke about him and said he's someone who might hemorrhage value for you. Yeah. So him returning is going to hold some value in the squad for you. So that's good.
For sure.
A lot of people are obviously talking about Shane Duffy. Oof. So he's 4.0. He obviously played against Burnley and played very well. And he scored a brilliant headed goal at the weekend and played fine. There were a couple of key points for this for me. One, Brighton became very lopsided during the game, attacking down the right-hand side. And I think that's because Lewis Dunk played as the left-sided centre-back. Duffy played centrally. And I think the idea behind that is Dunk is not someone who steps out with the ball in the same way, say, we saw Ben White do a lot last year. And actually, Adam Webster did really well at the weekend. So Dunk stayed quite close to Duffy. And one of the reasons for that is as well is you don't want to leave Duffy isolated one-on-one. No. Actually, you can look at it and go, oh, this is an exciting FPL prospect. He's actually potentially a problem for Brighton. At the moment, they have Joel Veltman out, who missed out again for isolation, and I think he'll come back in the team. Now, if he did and come back in at centre-back, Webster would go as the left-sided centre-back, and very importantly, Dunk would play as the central. Brighton will be much better as a football team when Dunk plays centrally. They also have Dan Burn to come back in as well,
Correct.
who he's probably not first choice, but can plug a gap at left wing back, left side centre back. I've seen a lot of people talking about Veltman as right wing back. Yes, can play that role. Traditionally, he's more a right-sided centre back or actually a right back in a back four. He could play that role, but I think there's a desire at the moment to use Pascal Gross in that position. It would be extremely harsh for Duffy to miss out against Everton, and I don't expect him to. But is Shane Duffy going to be nailed and stay in the Brighton team long term? I cannot see it, because he is playing the position that their best defender should be playing in. Lewis Dunk does not want to be playing left-sided centre-back for Brighton, and he will not stay in that position for long. So it might be that it stays that way. It might even stay that way for a couple of weeks. This is not going to be long-term. Absolutely cannot see it.
Yeah, simple.
I would not be buying Shane Duffy.
No. I mean, it's a real short-term punt if it is.
I think there's a lot of if Shimikas goes up to 4.2, I can nick the 0.1, and I can. If your team's brilliant enough that you can afford to do that sort of thing and then nick more value off Duffy, great. I think a lot of people are actually looking at it and going, I've got like Ben White problems. Well, my opinion is that Duffy is going to give you another problem.
Yeah.
And I would not go there personally. Obviously, if he plays at the weekend, he's a major threat from set piece and he can get you return. But you actually going to start him? Probably not.
No.
So, Livramento for me looks the best long-term 4.0. It was interesting, Cole Walker-Peters, just briefly on that, came on for Perraud yesterday, briefly, and we spoke about either Walker-Peters or Livramento could actually play left-back. Livramento's playing too well at the moment.
Yeah, it was one of the things that we talked about, keeping an eye on after the first game. You mentioned that you wanted to just understand why was Walker-Peters benched and Livramento playing, and that's a great segue into Southampton 1, Manchester United 1 yesterday. I mean, United could have won it, should have won it, but Southampton also probably will feel like they deserve the point as well, I think.
I think so. I mean, particularly the Armstrong chance at the end. What was fascinating is with great insight from Matt, Clean Sheet Wipeout on Clash of Correspondence, we previewed the game with him and Gary Robinson. And Matt's real concern, we spoke about Hassan Hootel, and was there a concern if points didn't get picked up soon, the way they'd finished last season, the amount of goals they were conceding. Absolutely fascinating that they were 1-0 up and he changed system. And Matt spoke specifically last week about major concerns about the fact that he doesn't. And I think that was really pleasing for Southampton fans yesterday to actually realise that even though they were winning, there was concern enough to say, we need to change this. And they went with a back three.
Yeah.
And it might be something that we see more of. You know that I'm not particularly an advocate of if you've got two shit centre-backs, the solution is not necessarily to play three. But it might be something short-term that solves some of their problems in some of the upcoming games. And from a Livramento prospect, suddenly you're not talking about right-back, you're talking about right wing-back. Something to keep an eye on. The other thing is almost you are not getting blocked with 3 Southampton players.
No.
It's not going to happen.
No. Although the other one that I have my eye on from Southampton's point of view is Adam Armstrong. If and when I decide to do something with Ivan Toney, I don't mind going down if I wanted to find money to upgrade elsewhere to Adam Armstrong at 6 million. Now, had the dubious goals panel awarded the goal to Che Adams, it would have been Adam Armstrong's assist yesterday. So then obviously he'd have a few more points on his tally, another 4 or 5 points, and we'd be looking at 2 returns in 6 million. Definitely going to play because they're playing 2 up top with Che Adams. Of the cheap strikers knocking around, I don't think his price point is bad at 6 million.
It's not, but the fixtures are shit.
They are.
You probably don't really.
He won't be playing.
You probably don't want to be buying Armstrong till probably around about Gameweek 8 from memory. I think they play Leeds.
Is Leeds?
Yeah.
Then Burnley, Watford, Villa.
Yeah,
Norwich.
It's a decent run from now. So that's probably where you'd be looking. And then as a Toney owner, if you're thinking Toney's or Armstrong, when do you make that? I mean, if Toney's underperforming, do you want to hold Toney till Gameweek 8? I think you're going to begin to get itchy about that week after week if he fails to return. And I don't see you going to buy Armstrong because of what Southampton have got.
Yep. Manchester United.
So life goes on. Neither Bruno Fernandes or Mo Salah are essential because no one's essential in this game. But as I said, Bruno could have easily had returns in this game. And Mason Greenwood was very fortunate to get his. I mean, talk about, obviously, the first goal being given to Fred. I mean, Greenwood actually kicks the ball from one foot onto the other. Does not strike it cleanly at all. And I don't know if McCarthy was already diving because Greenwood's aiming for the corner, but because it hits his foot, it goes central. McCarthy should still save it. He absolutely should save it. We've spoken about their goalkeeper issues. So there's fortuitous returns there as well. Martial, as I said, didn't play well. And I think it would mean against Wolves that Greenwood probably back through the middle. And I think there's every chance that Jadon Sancho would possibly start at Wolves at the weekend. I don't think there's a rush to play Varane in. What was the BPS in the game, Suj?
As in who scored how many points?
No, just the actual BPS. Because I know Greenwood got the top, didn't he?
Greenwood got 3.
No, what was the actual BPS?
21.
21 is low.
Very low.
What was Luke Shaw's?
17.
And he's got 2 bonus points.
Yeah.
So
Awful.
the point is, the reason I wanted to raise that was, don't read too much into Luke Shaw getting 2 bonus points. There's an anomaly that's happened now with the BPSs from the players being so low. I didn't watch all the games. As I said, I was at Wolves, but I wouldn't read anything into the Luke Shaw getting the 2 bonus points with a BPS of 17. That's ridiculously low. I can't think of. Someone find me a scenario where someone's picked up BPS with lower than 17.
Wow.
Oh, in the same game, I suppose. Who got 1 bonus point?
Salisu, 14.
Salisu got a bonus point with a BPS of 14.
Yeah.
Come on in, stat nerds. Tell me, why did this happen? Why did this happen in this game? But I don't think to read anything into it from a Luke Shaw perspective. It does mean the 4 point is quite cute, though, in the sense that it probably does hold his value a little bit longer. One of the things I've said with Luke Shaw is, and I know, again, people really looking at going, well, they've conceded in 2 games. He's mass owned. Do I want to come off this? Is he going to lose value? Yes, he could. I would just say, if you are thinking of selling him, look beyond this week and look at game week 4 and just check you've got good cover. Because game week 4, for the highly owned players at the moment, doesn't look great. It's part why I mentioned about those wanting to sell Ben White. If he's back for home to Norwich, it's possibly going to solve a problem for you. And Luke Shaw obviously has Newcastle at home, while you've got players like Leeds and Liverpool playing each other. There are other fixtures that don't look great from a defensive perspective.
Paul Pogba is the first player this season to have 2 price rises. He's now up to 7.7 million. Again, a solid performance, and more than anything else, attitude from Pogba.
He looks on it at the moment, absolutely.
And he's an asset in any game when he's playing like that, especially at that price, 7.7.
Well, he's gonna be interesting with the position he's playing. Is he gonna stay there long term? We spoke about that on that podcast last week as well, and we don't really know the answer as yet. But if he stays in that position as the kind of left forward, then yeah, he will become of interest, because he will create chances. He will score goals.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it, you kind of want to do it soon, because their run from game week 9 onwards, you start at game week 7, is a little bit trickier. You want to capture Wolves, Newcastle, Villa, West Ham in the next 4 if you want to do it right.
They're not that great though, are they?
No. But United, when they're in full attacking force, I mean, they could have scored 3 or 4 yesterday. The one that's also interesting is Mason Greenwood. I think I'm veering more and more towards saying that he's in their best 11.
I think with Rashford out, yes, it's more questionable when he's available. And obviously we've got Cavani to come back as well.
Yeah, I just think up top, I mean, as a striker, I'd play him up top as a striker.
Well, he's deadly in front of goal.
So good. Both feet.
Although, as we said, the goal was very lucky yesterday.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, I think it was.
He's in my team, Suj. There's a reason why.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I was just concerned that he wouldn't be first choice, because they've got so much depth there. Bruno, Pogba, Sancho, James, Rashford, Martial, Cavani, da-di-da. You're a 17, 18-year-old kid. Even if he has the talent, you nurse him a little bit because you don't want him to get injured and you want to grease him in. I just think he's good enough. Like that Rooney level where you think, you know what? You're that good. Just got to play you. So, I think Greenwood's getting to that point now where I just see him playing week in,
I think my outlook on Greenwood was always, and one of the reasons I really went for him was the idea that he would perhaps give me an additional cover for captaincy in game week 4, actually at home to Newcastle. So I might be landing in a position, and I said this pre-season, if I'm lucky enough, I may well go Salah to Bruno in game week 3 to give me Bruno for game week 4 if I have that luxury. What I don't like about it is I know I want to reverse that transfer in game week 5. Is there a case to say that I should look elsewhere and start building up some money in the bank? Maybe coming down from Emi Martinez, maybe coming down from Ricardo Pereira. I wouldn't sell Pereira this week. Perhaps something else. Harvey Barnes gets injured tonight, come down. Could Mason Greenwood cover me the captaincy game week 4? It's probably more the...
Well, think about this. I talked on the pod last week about when I was driving down to Cornwall and I saw the early kickoff in the team. Greenwood scared me more than Fernandes did as someone that could hurt me from an FPL point of view. That says it all. Like, yeah. Like when I see that United have got an attacking return, a goal or whatever, it always flashes up if I've got the alerts on goal Manchester United, and I bet Greenwood's involved more than I sometimes think Bruno. So that says it all. Yeah, I'm more fearful of Greenwood in so many ways. I don't know if that's my biases on him as a player.
It's very difficult now, though, to know that Mason Greenwood will start in game week 4. There's a lot that can happen in between. Not least the fact there's obviously the international break.
Cavani might be back and so on.
Cavani, I'm hoping, goes to play for Uruguay. Would be helpful.
Let's talk about Wolves Spurs. When I looked at the stats, I was quite surprised, to be honest with you, that Wolves had more of the ball by a considerable amount, more shots on target, more shots in the first half as well as the second half. It looks like they turned up for 90 minutes of football. Yet,
well, Nuno's not the manager anymore, is he?
Yet you've come away with 2-1 nils now, Spurs. But as
we just need another 36.
Yeah, I mean, you can't knock it. Yet I just still think that any sensible Spurs fan or anyone watching it from a neutral's point of view is like, caution here, because it's not all singing, all dancing, full flow Spurs at their finest in any way, shape or form. Defensively, hanging on a little bit. You could easily have conceded in both games. To just urge a bit of caution, but 6 points is 6 points. Join top of the league.
I'd like to talk about Wolves first because it could be 20 minutes on Tottenham. They were very unfortunate to lose the game. There's a lot to like about them. But Ruben Neves in midfield was outstanding, and fucking Traore, my God, mate. He's just unstoppable.
He is so bad.
I would like him to get, the next time he gets one-on-one, I would like him to go round the goalkeeper. Because if he feints and goes round the goalkeeper, you think any goalkeeper's getting near him with how quick he is. Just go, don't stop shooting. Just walk around the goalie and score.
Worst case, he'll win a penalty.
And he's definitely someone who'll be underperforming his XG at the moment. Now, they obviously have a difficult fixture this week against Manchester United. Bradley's going to come on for us during the international break and talk a bit more about Wolves. They've got a brilliant run. We've spoken about this. It's like game week 4 to game week 14. It is a long process and a long, good run. Can you tell me in the first instance, Suj, the price of a Wolves player? Because I've got no internet. Max Kilman.
Max
Wolves.
Kilman.
Everyone's looking for a defensive Wolves player at the moment. A defensive player at the moment.
£4.5 million.
Well, Max Kilman, on what I watched yesterday, will stay in that Wolves team if they stay with a back three. I was very impressed with him. Now, he's left-footed and plays the right-sided centre-back. It's a little bit awkward, but I think he's probably ahead of Saiss in the pecking order. It's worth saying, yes, Willy Bolly unavailable. The new signing, Mosquera, also unavailable. But I thought he played really well, actually, Max Kilman. Semedo is really interesting from game week 4 because they're another one who they look for the diagonals. Neves is unapologetic, out of his feet. Can I get it? Now, what Tottenham are doing a little bit different to what they've done, but they've already done it in the first 2 games. Fullbacks narrow when you're under pressure. Happy for the wide players to get the ball. That's not going to be the case in all games, but it does mean that in other games, especially when they play Norwich, which I believe is in that spell for them, Semedo inside run-ins from right-hand side, inside the left fullback is potentially going to cause some problems. I think Semedo is very interesting from game week 4. And actually, if he stays in the team, Marcel might be as well. Although Bradley always warns us that he'll get injured like any week. Raul Jimenez, I hope doesn't score this weekend.
To keep his price down.
Well, I don't think his price would go up anyway, but I'd like it to drop. Yeah, I'd like to potentially.
It's going to be hard. I mean, let's have a look. He's 3.2% ownership, mate.
Raul's a top player, and he will score goals. There was one moment yesterday where I thought he was going to win a header at the back post, and he pulled back off it to try and volley it instead. Now, I don't know if a year ago he would have just gone and headed it in. And it's literally that one moment that has me as real concern, because when we're looking at fixture swings and we're talking Danny Ings walks into Chelsea in game week 4, Ings to Jimenez in game week 4 is a move that I like. I also genuinely, I think if I was going Wolves defensively, I think Semedo's 5, isn't he? He might be worth paying more, particularly if they stay in that system with wing backs as well. But we know that Large wants to play a back 4, really.
Jimenez, I really wanted to do well. He had a baseline BPS yesterday, negative, -2.
Okay.
I don't get it. Like, was he?
I don't know enough about
shots off target, missing shots.
A lot of efforts. Yeah, a lot of efforts. I mean, Wolves had a lot of efforts. I think they had about 25 shots, Wolves. But then you look at the stats at the end. I think both teams had 6 shots on target. Trincao, I would avoid. Looks a very good player. Wants to come onto his left foot all the time. Looks a very tidy player. Don't see that being FPL returns. No. Personally, on what I've seen, I would actually go Traore over Trincao. I think if you want an attacking player, it's Jimenez. I think if the extra for Semedo in game, and we are talking for game week 4 here rather than game week 3. I think Semedo at 5 honestly is really interesting for people who want to come off Digne, or you wait an extra week, get Luke Shaw against Newcastle, and then Wolves got in game week 5. So I think they've got Watford away in 4.
Wolves in game week 5, my friend, are playing Brentford at home.
Yeah. I can see that. Shaw to Semedo for me in game week 5 as a possibility, actually. I think it'd be interesting. Now that we spoke about Kai Hoover a lot last week. Thank you to Steve Phipps, who's a Wolves fan, who pointed out to me that Semedo couldn't play against Leicester. He had a little bit of a niggle, and it would come back in. Right. Bradley was certainly of the opinion that Semedo instead of Hoover was what he would want to see. So I think Semedo is really, and I think he's fucking ropey defensively, but it doesn't matter for FPL.
No.
I think he could have some fun. I think he's one really to watch, Nelson Semedo.
We don't have 20 minutes to talk about Spurs.
All right, I'll do it in 5.
Harry Kane doing 2. Harry Kane back on the pitch.
With a 0-pointer.
But I feel like it eases, it's like a pressure cooker. It releases all this, like, had he not been there or had he not played or whatever, there's still doubts about what's going to happen in the next few weeks or whatever. He's fit and able to play for Spurs, so he'll play for Spurs now whilst he's a Spurs player. Whilst he's on your book.
Not necessarily.
You think that next week you drop him?
No, I think
he'll play, won't he?
Well, what's the date today? So was it 24th? The deadline is what, next Monday?
Yeah, which is a bank holiday.
I would say maybe it's the 1st, actually. Maybe it's September the 1st, the Tuesday. So Tottenham play Sunday afternoon. I would not bank on Harry Kane playing, honestly. It could be that the bid gets accepted Saturday night after the FPL deadline. You rock up at White Hart Lane. Where is he? He's not there. I can foresee that.
Buying this guy anyway, let's be honest, right now.
No, but it does, as I said, it does potentially have an impact on if Son is fit. As I said at the start, he might have picked up a niggle yesterday. It has to impact your decision on whether you should captain Heung-min Son or not. Whether you think Kane's going to play or not. Now, there'll probably be further clues on Thursday night, because obviously Tottenham have this Europa Conference game. And presumably Kane plays. We're losing. It's an easy chance for him to get minutes in his legs, right?
Yeah. We need to talk about this on Tottenham. So anyone who's not a patron who wants to become a patron, I'll trust me, Tottenham, so that we can talk about Paco Rabanne, Ferrero Rocher FC beating Spurs.
Yes, we will.
I'm excited by it.
I'm really not worried about it. It was amusing for 5 minutes when he came on yesterday, because the whole ground was singing his name, because they were abusing us about he wants to play for a big club and he wants to fuck off, and we were singing back to them about Nuno left because you're shit. And
okay.
Yeah, there was good banner. It was nice to have that in the away ground yesterday. I don't know what it means for Kane. I've spoken about this a lot in the summer. It comes down to interpretation. So there's some people suggesting Kane's really concerned that he's kind of burnt bridges with the Spurs fans and actually wants to show up over the next couple of weeks to prove that he does still care about the club. And I can tell you that the reaction in the ground yesterday was completely positive from Tottenham fans towards Harry Kane. There was no large, he's one of our own singing that non-stop. There wasn't any of that, but it was definitely no negative. There was no boo. There was nothing like that yesterday. And he came on and he shithoused them, didn't he? First thing he did, he was diving, trying to win a free kick. He picked up a booking for time wasting. He was trying to help Tottenham get over the line. And actually, the one thing that we were saying to people around me was Wolves had a really big spell kind of around the chance that Traore missed, and you felt like the equaliser had to come. And it's like, what do you do to change the game? We're all looking at it and going, he's got to get Harry Kane on the pitch. And he had to, and he did. Kane did okay. There were a couple of outstanding performers yesterday for Spurs. I thought Steven Bergwijn put a brilliant shift in. If you haven't seen his skill towards the end of the game on the left touchline, go and get hold of that on YouTube. That is disgusting. But Tottenham's outstanding player yesterday was the goal scorer, Dele Alli, who obviously that gets people's attention because he took the penalty. The first thing on the penalties is He said in an interview afterwards, Dele, that basically him and Heung-min Son are both the penalty takers. He didn't say if Kane leaves, but obviously if Kane stays, Kane will take the penalties.
Yeah.
It's not certain. If Kane does leave, it's not certain that Dele Alli is on the penalties. Apparently, it's decided by Nuno pre-game and put on the board who the penalty taker is. That's literally what Dele Alli said. And he said that for this game, it was between him and Sonny, and Nuno put Dele on the board for the penalty taker. I don't know what that's all about. It's a bit weird.
I ain't going to lie. I was counting my points when you were awarded the penalty for Son. As soon as the penalty was awarded,
I thought Sonny would take it. Yeah,
I was like, yes, there's some points for Son, and then it flashed up as Dele Alli is taking it, and I'm just like, God, because that was my cousin.
Can I just say, I'm not comfortable on Dele Alli or Heung-min Son taking penalties because neither of them are particularly good at them, in my opinion.
My cousin, I don't get it. He's the classic non-conventional FPL thinking, but he's always top 15, top 20k. Always, it's like, yeah, Dele Alli's gonna bang. I'm like, well, like, where's this coming from? Like, where's the logic in it? And he's like, so then afterwards, I was chatting to him. He said he saw an interview with Dele Alli a couple of days previously, and Dele Alli was saying that he has set himself a very high goals and assists target for this season, but he's not sharing it with anyone. He's keeping it to himself. But
more than last year, 3 and 2.
Well, that's not going to be difficult. But that he looked like he had a point to prove, and he was setting himself an ambitious target for this year to prove that point, which is why he felt like he could go to Dele Alli.
Don't buy. Simple as that, as far as I'm concerned. You will see Dele closer to the attacking phases of Spurs play on Sunday, and that's because the opposition we're playing and will have more of the ball. We've obviously been dominated possession-wise in both of the first 2 games. So it's 4-3-3 without the ball. Dele goes to left-hand side of a midfield 3. And with it, there is intention for him to go and support and play as a 10, and Skip and Højbjerg just basically take 5-10 yards to their left and then become a double pivot in midfield. It means that he's getting through a phenomenal amount of work off the ball, and that was so impressive with him yesterday and in the Manchester City game. Is the work ethic. He's back. He's really playing for the shirt, when I think he's obviously had a lot of stuff said about him off the pitch, and I think he's lost a lot of confidence, and he's definitely lost a yard of pace. The goal yesterday is everything you love about Dele. Not the penalty, it's the running in behind that wins the game. That's Dele, not on the ball, being intricate, ghosting past players off the ball, and wins us the game with that. He makes sure that contact happens. Technically, it's a dive, but it was right in front of me because I was on the side and knew it was a penalty 100%, but he made sure the contact happened rather than him getting wiped out. So if you take this weekend against Watford, he's going to play as a 10, probably more than one of the 3, because you would like to think we're going to have more of the ball. Obviously, yesterday, having started okay, and the game was quite level in the opening 10 minutes or so, we obviously set off deeper once they scored, and then it became, right, we're going to play counter-attack. The front 3 played very narrow again. We were setting traps. Sonny had one breakaway where he bursted past Cody, and I have no idea why he was trying to square it to Bergwijn. Just shoot, and he scores. So we were setting a lot of traps. That meant that we had a few decent counter-attacks in the second half where we could have killed the game. But Wolves should have won it. The issue that Wolves have defensively is no pace in that back line. And actually, if people spring on and counter-attack them, they're going to have problems. Tottenham
Can Willy Bolly fix that? A bit.
Probably not.
It's better than what they've got, though.
Probably not. But genuinely, I would not be surprised if Wolves get a result against Manchester United at the weekend. They'll be fine.
Arsenal 0, Chelsea 2. Standard.
Arsenal might not be.
Standard. I mean, Arsenal need to get their first 11 back out and on the pitch. I think that's one thing to say. And then perhaps judge them. I think Arsenal would, when you say they might not be fine, they're not getting relegated, mate.
Yeah, I think they will.
Nah.
No, you're right.
Will they improve on the last couple of seasons' 8th potential finish? I don't think so. I think there's too many teams that are better than them.
What they've got, though, unfortunately, is they've got a poisonous atmosphere has already built around the football club 2 games in, and this was always liable to happen if they didn't win at Brentford because of the 2 games afterwards. And I think you've got a group of supporters now who will not be for turning on Mikel Arteta and obviously want him out, and the pressure will build, and it's very unlikely to get better for them this week with Manchester City away. Then they have Norwich. If you don't beat
Norwich...
Norwich...
they have a great run for
a
long period.
This is what we've been saying. I mean, if you actually look at Arsenal's home fixtures, so if you're looking for a rotating Ben White or something, their home fixtures up until January are phenomenal from game week 4.
Norwich, Tottenham, Palace, Villa, Watford.
An Arsenal defensive player might well be of interest. I mean, Kieran Tierney picked up an injury yesterday to add to the problems. If Tavares plays at left back for a conservative opinion, he might suddenly become of interest. Ben White apparently is not going to play at Manchester City, but then I guess he won't be in the England squad and he'll be back available for game week 4. And I think he'd probably be 4.3 by that point, and he might be quite interesting. Right back, we don't know what's happening. It's been Chambers or Bellerin. Oh, Cedric plays yesterday. I don't know what that was about. Adam Pritchard, our Arsenal correspondent, spoke in the build-up about wanting Arsenal to play a back three. It would give them a real solid base and a chance of winning the game. I think a lot of people shared that opinion. Those who saw more of the game than I would seem to be saying, what was Arsenal's plan yesterday? I don't know. You're right. Look, you've still got Aubameyang potentially to bring back into that team. Saka's not 100% fit yet. Lacazette, Odegaard to bring back into the team. Gabriel, Ben White, Thomas Partey. So there's a lot of the players missing, in fairness. So I don't think we should overreact, but at the same time, they're probably already in a position where they can't finish top 4. And that's got to be their goal as Arsenal Football Club. So
difficult.
But for FPL, they have an amazing swing from game week 4. And I just don't judge on what you see against Man City this weekend. And know that there's a lot of home games coming up where they will... What's the term you always use for them? Flat track bullies and stuff.
Flat track bullies.
They will murder some of these teams in home games at the Emirates with the crowd back there. I'm sure they will.
Yep.
Chelsea looked the real deal.
Reece James, 18 point. I think that's the highest points return for the season so far. I mean,
other than Bruno Fernandes in game week 1.
20 in game week 1, but yeah, Reece James, clean sheet, goal, assist.
If we knew Reece James was going to play everywhere, he'd be in everybody's team, mate.
You might still just get into my team. I don't see what alternative
he's cheaper than Chilwell, isn't he? He's 5.5.
Yeah, he's 5.5. And I can see Azpilicueta being the right-sided of a 3 much more than I can see him going back out to right wing back. Like, I don't see why.
He's Azpi 6 though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's expensive.
I'd say you can't do that when you've got Rudiger at 5.5 as well.
No. Reece James is the one for me at 5.5.
He's so interesting. The other thing that I saw, forgive me, I don't know who it was, but I saw a stat last night as well that when he'd been a substitute for Chelsea as well, he'd only actually stayed a substitute 3 times. So like he invariably gets on for the 1-pointer and stuff. So that's a pain in the arse. There's certain ones where I think, like with a lot of the Man City guys, if you're John Stones or someone similar is left out, there's a fair chance, okay, it's 0 point, your bench covers you. With Reece James, it's every chance it could be a 1-pointer. But I think once we get to game week 7, we're going to be looking at it, and most teams are going to have one of Rudiger, Chilwell, or Alonso, if he's still in the team, Reece James, one of Mount or Havertz, and Lukaku.
I don't know about Lukaku. I agree with the other two. I just don't know if people will have the money.
You need Romelu Lukaku, I think, for game week 7, mate.
I think Romelu Lukaku is looking...
Those 5 fixtures for Chelsea from game week 7 are disgusting. Now, there were probably 2 weeks of the 5 where Mo Salah is arguably a little bit better from a captaincy perspective. But this is when I've spoke about Fernandes a lot, and I've said, do I want to pay 12 million for a player I'm going to captain once in 11 game weeks? Well, I can look at Romelu Lukaku at 11.7, or let's even say if he's 12 million by that point, and look at it and go, I probably am sticking the armband on him for at least 3 of the 5. It becomes worth the money.
Yeah, and one more game left to go this week. Tonight at the London Stadium, West Ham versus Leicester. This is going to be a good game tonight. I'm really looking forward to it, taking the boys for a bit of under the lights football, which the little one's never been to. The older one has once, but under the lights football's a little bit different. So my kids are 9 and 7 now. The 9-year-old now, he knows a few swear words. He'll never repeat them, but he knows shit and fuck and a few others. So every time we've been to West Ham before, up to date, he's never said, oh, what does that mean to me with someone somewhere in the crowd? Because it happens all the time. Today, I think it's the first time I'm taking him to football. Obviously, it's been 18 months, right, bar the United game in between. That I think he might be like, oh, There's a few naughty words around here today. Because obviously night games, people have had a beer or two before the game, so they're even more rowdy. But I am looking forward to it tonight and seeing it. And I think I'm going to stick with my Desmond 2-2 prediction. But I definitely think there's going to be goals.
I fancy to win tonight, actually.
Yeah. The atmosphere is going to be lively, though. I think I've said it to a number of my West Ham fans. The reality is, in the last 18 months, well, not 18 months, but at least last season, they gave us a lot to be happy about through COVID. So we've got to support the team tonight. So it'll be interesting to see.
That's it.
And on we roll. Do you want to, James, give everybody a rundown of what they have to look forward to for the rest of the week? And we are going to take and answer one question from Twitter.
Oh, just one?
Yeah, we actually looked through all the player-related questions. We talked about all of them, the vast majority, but there's one question that's come up a couple of times that we haven't answered. What's on the agenda for the rest of the week?
So, as I said, People's Poll vote is now. You can find that on my Twitter account, Planet FPL Pod. So it's captaincy for Game Week 3, problem players and how to deal with them, or the possible COVID problem for Game Week 4. That's tomorrow's podcast. Wednesday, Sky Fantasy Football. Thursday's Clash to Correspondence. Manchester City versus Arsenal with FPL Pringle and 3-5 Who. I think both are probably regretting signing up to this so early in the season. Johnny, hello, mate. The good news is you don't have to come to White Hart Lane again this season until you bury us in the FA Cup or something. And we'd obviously get some real insight in terms of what's happening with Adam and Arsenal. And I obviously want to speak to Adam ahead of Game Week 4, so we'll get more insight from him in terms of, is there anyone he fancies? He might just completely shut it down and go, you're stupid. We'll find out Thursday. Friday, Suj James stream, about 3 o'clock UK time. Deadline stream Saturday morning, 10 a.m. UK time. On Patreon, we have our Q&A for intermediate tiers and above today. Tomorrow, a special podcast on the life and career of Gerd Müller, the former Germany striker who we sadly lost very recently. One of the great strikers in the history of world football. Wednesday, Tottenham. We'll obviously speak in detail about Suj's game tonight. We'll speak a bit more about my trip to Wolves and Tottenham's performance in Portugal, perhaps, and the latest on Harry Kane, wherever it's at. I'm sure it will change again by Wednesday. Thursday's a quiz. Name the player. Our Manchester United correspondent is my cap players providing the quiz this week, Suj. So I'll be on the answers for a change. And Friday we'll have our Game Week 3 preview show, the differential show.
Tidy. Anyone that wants to join us on Patreon, you know where to go. Patreon.com/Planet FPL. You can find out more about our cash leagues and Slack channel, additional content, and a whole heap of stuff there as well. Question, James.
Go.
The one word that's come up a few times in various people's Twitter questions is wildcard.
Do you know what? I didn't speak about Spurs defenders at all, did I?
None of the above.
None of the above. Just very briefly, because we didn't cover it, and I can see people going mad about that. Right, at some point, Christian Romero is going to come in the team. I don't know for Sanchez or Dyer. Tottenham are trying to buy a right back, are trying to buy a centre back. No team has conceded more shots than Tottenham in the first 2 game
43.
weeks. I see some people already saying, yeah, but they allowed shots from distance. Listen, Wolves had 14 shots inside the box yesterday. Now, many of them were blocked, and there was some heroic defending going on. You ain't always going to get the blocking.
No.
And Tottenham do have a couple of good more fixtures coming up. Like, I'm looking at Watford at home, Palace away, and I'm kind of demanding another 6 points from that before a little bit of a tougher run. We do not have the information on Tottenham. In 2 weeks' time, I can probably give you the information. But I still don't know Romero will come in for Dyer or Sanchez. Tottenham are good. I'm almost certain Tottenham will buy a defender before the window shuts. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Wildcard.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people thinking is now the time to, with some different 4.0s becoming interesting, Chelsea assets have become interesting, and so on. Where are you, and what do you think on people thinking now might be a good time to pull the wild card?
I think if people believe that now is the right time to use their wild card, they should use their wild card. Everybody's different. It's difficult to advise. We're not looking at the team. For all I know, you're sitting there with 5 or 6 problems and you've started badly and you want to fix it. I get that. For me, there are going to be so many better opportunities to use the wild card than this. Chelsea in 7, Manchester United in 14 or 15. 2 weeks worth is not enough data-wise. Remember, you can pull that wild card now. Do you want to use the second one in game week 19 or 20? Probably not. This is your team now for I know you can take hits and fix things and you'll have free transfers, but is 2 weeks data enough when we've got several players who we don't even have the information on, like Christian Romero at Tottenham?
Yeah.
You know, is Edison Cavani going to come into the Manchester United team suddenly and move Greenwood out wide? Jadon Sancho's got to come in. There was Roberto Firmino hasn't played for Liverpool hardly. There are so many players we just do not have the information on. I don't think 2 weeks is enough to judge it, personally.
Agreed. I do see the value for people in.
I think it's a lot of it's. Listen, obviously, if you go early at this time of season and you're looking to keep the value in your squad because you're worried you're going to lose 6-7 players with 0.1s and stuff like that, I get it. I absolutely get it. It's not for me. I've never wildcarded this early. The earliest of wildcard would have been like game week 4 during the international break.
Yep.
I get the appeal of free, especially if we don't know where we're standing with this COVID situation for game week 4. I mean, imagine that. If you're wildcarding now this week and we don't get the information for the wildcard for game week 4, how do you go in with like Rafinha's and Salah's and stuff and they might not even be available? I think it probably will be, to cover it off just very briefly, but it's dangerous, isn't it?
Have you I mean, obviously Pogba is the only
and
person.
The transfer window shuts next week.
Yeah, just wait and see.
It's not for me.
Yeah. The other thing is, other than Pogba, no one's made any money on anyone yet because everyone else has only gone up a maximum of 0.1. So I've got 4 players, Salah, Jota, Ings and Antonio have all gone up in value, but they've all only gone up 0.1. So it makes it quite tricky to make any money at this point. If you're wildcarding and you're losing players that have gone up 0.1 and not 0.2, you haven't banked anything to allow you to maneuver your money elsewhere. There's so many players that I'd like to get to where effectively them going up 0.1, they may as well have gone up 0.5 because the rest of your team is in multiples of 0.5, that it's hard to make those moves. So this doesn't make sense for me right now to see how you can do that. Like Calvert-Lewin, I'd love to get, but him being 8.1, he may as well be 8.5 for me right now, and so it's difficult to get to. Can't see it at the moment. You mentioned something just now that's massive, that's in the back of my mind that I didn't even think about.
Defenders?
The transfer window.
Yeah.
Obviously, so much is going to happen in the next week. I can see it really getting frantic and frenetic. So yeah, it's going to be mad.
We don't have the information. There are teams that are going to still do business. Listen, when game week, I'm fairly certain that when game week 3 kicks off, we will not know who Harry Kane will be playing for in game week 4. I mean, that's pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be for me. If it's best for you, crack on, but I can't advise it.
No. There we go. Thank you for tuning in to the pod. Hope the rundown of the games has been helpful to you. We will be back at you tomorrow with more content, but of course, main pod next week. Wherever you're listening, make sure you're subscribed. Any comments, feedback, reviews, all welcome. Stay safe. Chat for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man. Shut.